Snow rested heavy on the tall pine branches of Montana Territory as the late afternoon light dimmed across the clearing. November winds curled between the trees, carrying the sharp bite of winter. In the center of the clearing stood a half-finished cabin, its rough log walls rising from the frozen ground like the start of a new dream. Each log had been hauled, lifted, and set by one pair of hands. Eleanor Sullivan's hands. She gripped her hammer and lifted another plank into place. Her breath came out in cloudy puffs. Her lower back ached from days of building and from the weight of her unborn child. Still, she worked. She had come here to make a life that belonged to her and no one else. She struck the nail twice before a voice drifted from the tree line with the quiet ease of someone used to long rides and longer silences. "Miss, I thought this place was abandoned, but I guess I was wrong." Eleanor froze. She had not heard a human voice in many days. She turned slowly and saw a cowboy on a bay gelding. His hat was pulled low against the cold. His coat was worn from weather, not from neglect. His eyes watched her with calm steadiness. She tightened her hold on the hammer. Her heart beat hard and fast. "This land is mine," she said. "If you are lost, head west. There is nothing here for you." The cowboy tipped his hat with simple respect. No challenge, no smirk. No trouble. Just riding the boundary of my family's ranch. Name is Clayton Hartwell. Circle H. 10 miles north. He glanced at the cabin walls, then at her gloves, then at her belly. He was not judging. He was trying to understand. "Didn't expect to see someone building alone," he said. "I prefer it that way," Eleanor answered. Clayton swung down from his horse with controlled ease. He stayed a safe distance, boots crunching through the frost. "No offense," he said gently. "Most women do not take on work like this." His eyes lowered to her stomach. "Especially not in your condition." Eleanor held her chin high. She had heard doubt before. She was tired of it. "I did not come here to be like most women," she said. She lifted the hammer again and drove the nail with slow, firm strikes. Her breath rose in white clouds around her face. Clayton nodded as if that answer pleased him. "Building a cabin and carrying a child. That takes grit." "I have grit," she said. "What I do not have is time for charity." He watched her for a moment. There was no pity in his eyes. Only something quiet and respectful. "Not charity," he said. "Just offering help if you needed something heavy lifted." She finished setting the plank before glancing at him again. His hands were rough from ranch work. His face carried lines carved by loss and weather. He looked like a man who had known grief and kept walking. "I am not broken," she said. "I am building." Clayton stepped back. "Understood. If you ever need anything, the Circle H is near." She watched him ride away through the trees. Only when he vanished did she lean against the wall and let a long breath leave her body. The baby inside shifted gently. She placed a hand on her belly. She was not scared. But she was not as unshakable as she wished to be. 3 days later, the cold deepened. Eleanor lifted a plank of pine and settled it against her shoulder. A sharp ache shot through her side. She swallowed the pain and pushed on. "You are pushing too hard," a voice said behind her. Her heart jumped. She turned and saw Clayton again. Snow clung to his coat. He held a bundle wrapped in checkered cloth. "I did not ask for company," she said. "No," he replied, "but I came anyway." He set the bundle on a stump. "My mother sent tea for sickness and some baby clothes she knitted. She said you would pretend not to need them, but sent them anyway." Eleanor stared at the bundle. Her breath trembled. Clayton looked over the cabin walls. "You built all this yourself. Every nail." "Impressive," he said. "Painful too, I imagine." She folded her arms. "Why are you really here?" "To gather stories for your mother." "I am here because I want to be," he said, "and because I do not like the thought of you hurting alone when you do not have to. I am not a charity case. I never said you were." She stepped closer. Her voice tightened. "Men offer help like it is a blessing. But it always comes with a price. Clayton did not move. His voice grew softer. Some people offer help because they admire your strength. Her breath caught. She looked away for a moment. When she looked back, he was still watching her with the same steady patience. "I will leave," he said. "Just thought you could use the tea." He turned and walked to his horse. She waited until he vanished before she went to the stump. Inside the cloth were soft yellow knit clothes and a tin of ginger mint tea. Something inside her chest cracked open. Not breaking, just loosening. 1 week later they worked together without planning it. He stopped by with tools. She did not turn him away. They sawed boards. They set beams. They shared the canteen. Their silences were comfortable. When she finally told him about her past, about the marriage that was never fully closed, about the man who walked away from her, Clayton did not step back. He stayed where he was and said only, "That is a heavy thing to carry." And for the first time, Eleanor wondered if she did not have to carry everything alone. Winter crept deeper into the valley as Eleanor's cabin slowly took shape. The walls stood steady now, the roof frame half complete, and the chimney stones stacked in a rough circle where a future fire would warm the home she was fighting to build. Each morning brought harsher winds and colder shadows, yet she kept moving, her breath visible in the air, her hands stiff but determined. Clayton Hartwell returned often, though never without respect. Sometimes he carried tools. Other times he brought food from his mother's kitchen. And once he came with nothing but 2 strong hands to lift the heaviest log she could not manage alone. He never pushed closer than she allowed. He never assumed he had a place beside her, but he showed up, steady as sunrise. One morning the sky glowed pale gold over the snow when Clayton handed her a canteen. His breath rose in white clouds. "You work too hard," he said quietly. "I have no choice," Eleanor replied. "The walls must be finished before the next storm." He studied her as she measured a board. Her movements were slow, her back stiff. She refused to show weakness, but pain had settled deep beneath her ribs. Clayton knelt beside the half-built hearth, stacking stones she had carried one by one. "You built this alone, Eleanor. All of it. You have nothing to prove." She did not look at him. The cold wind lifted her hair as she braced a plank on the sawhorse. "I am not trying to prove anything. I am trying to survive." They worked through the morning. Sawdust clung to their clothes. The sound of hammer and saw filled the space between them like a quiet language neither needed to explain. When a stubborn board splintered, Clayton laughed, a short, warm sound that loosened something tight in Eleanor's chest. She allowed herself one small smile in return. Later, when they rested, she sat on the floor with her back against a log wall, her hand on her belly. Clayton handed her a blanket from his saddlebag. "You look tired," he said softly. "I am fine." He sat across from her, his voice lowered. "You do not have to be fine all the time." She looked away, her throat tight. "Out here, fine is all I can afford to be." Clayton watched her quietly, then asked, "What brought you all the way to Montana?" Her fingers tightened around the blanket. It took her a long moment to answer. "I was married in Boston." His expression stayed calm, but his posture shifted, ready to listen. "Proper ceremony," she said. "Ivory gloves, roses, all of it." Then he walked out 6 months later, said the child was not his. Clayton's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. "I never told him the truth," Eleanor continued, "that the child was his, that the dates matched. He left before I could say the words." A slow, cold silence settled between them. "The divorce papers were never finished," she went on. "Not fully. The law still ties me to him." Clayton nodded slowly. "That is a difficult weight to carry." "I do not advertise it," Eleanor said. "Out here, I am already judged for being alone and expecting a child. No one needs to know the rest." Clayton's voice was quiet. "I understand judgment more than you think." She studied him now, sensing something deeper behind his calm eyes. "What about you?" she asked. "You do not ride alone for no reason, He stared toward the snowy ridge. Her name was Sarah, he said. My wife. She loved fast horses. Took a gelding too quick one morning. Broke her neck on the ridge east of our ranch. Eleanor's breath stilled. I found her myself, he added. I was 28. 5 winters ago. A long silence followed, soft as falling snow. I am sorry, Eleanor said. So am I, he replied. But I am still here, and so are you. They worked again through the afternoon, both quieter now. Their movements fell into natural rhythm, as if they had always built things side by side. When the light faded, they sat on the unfinished porch watching the sky turn violet above the snow-covered valley. Eleanor wrapped her shawl tighter. Her hands trembled from cold and effort. Clayton offered his coat. She shook her head at first, but after a moment she reached for it. When she took it, she spoke in a voice barely above the wind. It feels safer to rely on no one. But maybe it is just lonelier. Clayton looked at her, not with desire or pity, but with something steadier. Maybe, he said. Days passed, and winter deepened. Rumors drifted through Willowbrook of Clayton's visits to the woman building a cabin alone. Eleanor heard the whispers when she traded eggs. The clerk watched her with tight lips. The Kowalskis lowered their voices around her, but she ignored it. She had survived worse than rumors, until the day a carriage pulled into her clearing. A tall woman stepped out. Elegant wool coat, gloves too fine for Montana, a face that expected the world to bend around her. Miss Sullivan, she said. I am Victoria Morrison. Eleanor stood straight, hand on her belly. I know who you are. Victoria glanced at the cabin, at the logs, at the sawdust under Eleanor's boots. I will be direct, she said. Whatever is happening between you and Clayton Hartwell must end. Eleanor's breath caught. There is nothing happening. Victoria's tone sharpened. He visits. People talk. His name is being dragged through every parlor in Willowbrook because he is spending time with you. Eleanor felt heat rise in her face. I never asked him to come. But you never sent him away either. Eleanor stepped forward. I do not want his name or his future. I have asked nothing from him. Victoria's smile was thin. You have taken his attention, his time, his loyalty. And now my fiancé is hesitating to set a wedding date because of you. Eleanor's heart slammed hard. Your fiancé. Victoria nodded. And he will not be your future, nor the father of your child. So pack your things and leave this valley before you destroy the life he is meant to have. Eleanor's breath shook. Tears pricked her eyes, but she did not let them fall. I built this cabin alone, she whispered. I have asked no one for anything. And yet, here we are, Victoria said coldly. Because your presence alone is enough to pull a good man off his path. She turned back to the carriage. Leave before this becomes worse. Eleanor stood frozen long after the carriage vanished. Her chest ached, as if the cold had reached her heart. When she finally whispered into the wind, her voice broke. Am I destroying the only good man who ever looked at me without pity? Snow fell quietly that evening, covering the earth in a white hush. Eleanor sat by the fire, holding a cup of tea that had gone cold in her hands. Victoria's words still echoed in her mind, sharper than the wind outside. She had fought storms, long nights, and loneliness, but doubt was something she had no defenses for. Each time the wind pressed against the cabin walls, she expected the worst. A letter, a message, a goodbye. She braced herself to lose the one person who had seen her strength instead of her mistakes. When hoofbeats finally sounded outside, her breath caught. For a moment she thought she should not open the door. But she did. Clayton stood there, covered in snow, cheeks red from wind, eyes steady with a resolve she had never seen in him before. Eleanor, he said, I need to talk to you. She stepped aside. You should not be here. I should be exactly here, he replied, stepping inside. The firelight warmed his face as he removed his gloves. His movements were firm, not hesitant like before. "I went home," he said. "I told my father the engagement is over. I will not marry Victoria Morrison." Eleanor's heart lurched. "Clayton, you cannot do this." "I just did," he said. He was furious, told me I was throwing away everything. "But I will not build a life I do not want." She stood near the fire trying to calm her breath. "I am not doing this for rebellion," he continued, "and not because I pity you. I am doing this because I choose what is real. You, this place, that child." She shook her head as tears stung her eyes. "You cannot throw your future away for a scandal." "I am not throwing anything away," he said. "I am building something new." Silence filled the cabin. Only the fire crackled softly. "There is something you do not know," Eleanor said. "Something I should have told you long ago." Clayton waited. "I am not divorced," she said. "Not legally. I never received the final papers. In the eyes of the law, I am still another man's wife." Clayton's eyes held steady. He did not step back. "I thought it was over," she whispered. "I left Boston believing he would finish the papers. But no document ever arrived. I ran because I was tired of being hurt. I wanted to disappear." Her voice cracked. "You deserve someone free, someone who can marry you without hiding anything. I cannot give you that." Clayton stepped closer, calm and certain. "You think this changes how I feel?" She tried to pull her hands away, but he held them gently. "This only makes me want to stand by you even more." Her breath broke in her chest. "I cannot offer you anything," she whispered. "Not a name, not a clean past, nothing but this cold cabin and a child not yet born." "You offered me honesty," Clayton said. "You offered me something real. That is more than I have had in years." For the first time in a long time, Eleanor looked into someone's eyes and did not see pity. She saw love. Before she could speak, a storm rolled in fast. Wind rattled the walls. Snow thickened outside. Hours later, the pain began. Sharp, fierce, sudden. Her child was coming. She gripped the table as a contraction tore through her. She cried out, doubling over. The cabin swayed in her vision. The storm rose louder, swallowing sound. Clayton reached for his coat. "I have to get help." "No," she gasped. "You will never make it through that storm." He looked into her eyes, torn between fear and duty. He knew she was right. But he tried anyway. He could not stay still while she faced this pain alone. He saddled his best horse and rode into the storm. Snow swallowed him instantly. Wind fought him with each step. His horse slipped on hidden ice and threw him into a frozen creek. The cold knocked the breath from his lungs. His shoulder blazed with pain. But he rose. "She needs me," he whispered into the storm. He stumbled forward through waist-high snow, each step dragging his strength. Inside the cabin, Eleanor screamed as the storm shook the walls. Sweat mixed with tears. She pushed through pain that felt like fire. She whispered prayers. She begged the child to come. And then, at last, a cry rose in the warm light of the hearth. Her baby. A boy. She held him close, sobbing with relief and love. But Clayton had not returned. Fear gutted her. She rocked her son with trembling arms. "Please," she whispered. "Please come back." A knock came faint, then stronger. Her breath stopped. The door opened. Clayton stood there soaked in snow, blood on his shirt, shivering with exhaustion. He fell to his knees by the fire, chest heaving. He looked at her, then at the baby. He reached out a shaking hand and touched the tiny fingers curled against her chest. "Looks like you already built a family, Miss Sullivan," he said with a tired smile. "Mind if I join?" Eleanor's heart broke open. She placed the baby in his arms. "Only if you are sure." "I have never been more sure," he said. The storm raged outside, But inside the cabin a new warmth grew, something stronger than winter, something neither of them had dared to hope for. Days later, the sky softened and spring touched the land. Eleanor walked outside with her newborn son against her chest. Clayton worked nearby building a new kitchen wall. The earth was thawing. Birds returned. They had named the boy Thomas. One afternoon, Eleanor sat at her small writing desk. She signed a letter to a law office in Boston, her request for a final divorce. Her hand trembled as she sealed the envelope. When Clayton stepped inside, dusted with sawdust, she held it up. "The last piece," she said. He kissed her forehead. "I am proud of you." They did not need rings or ceremonies. Their promise lived in the walls they built together, in the warmth of shared labor, in the laughter of the child who had changed everything. One evening, as the sun washed the valley in gold, Eleanor wrote a letter to her father. She placed it in the tin box he once owned. "You were right," she wrote. "A home is not a place. It is a feeling. I built this cabin with my own hands, but he made it a home." Outside, Clayton worked on the fence. Thomas laughed in the sling against her chest. The wind carried the scent of pine and promise. For the first time in her life, Eleanor knew she was not alone. She had built a cabin. And with Clayton, she had built a future.